At Port Arthur LNG, I'm Tia Johnson.
And I'm Mark Armstrong. Early yesterday morning around 2 a.m., a structure around a concrete tank under construction at the facility collapsed with 5 workers on it. 3 of them died. Now, according to Jefferson County Justice of the Peace Brad Burnett, 2 workers died on the site, and that was a 25-year-old from Houston and a 42-year-old now identified as Felix Lopez. His family just confirmed his name to us. Another one was rushed to Christus St. Elizabeth Hospital, where Justice of the Peace Ben Collins said that he died. That man was 41-year-old Reggie McGee, according to a friend. 2 others were injured but released.
The Sheriff's Office, Bechtel, and federal OSHA inspectors are working to figure out what happened. 12 News reporter Cameron Burchett takes a look at what happened.
This is really early in the investigation to make any type of determination.
Jefferson County Sheriff's Deputy Captain Crystal Holmes says investigators are still determining what caused the scaffolding to collapse under the workers at Port Arthur LNG in the early morning hours.
The facility will be investigating, OSHA will be called in, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office obviously investigating as well.
3 workers fell off the scaffolding.
There was some type of failure in the scaffolding system.
2 died on site and a 3rd died at the hospital.
Not all employees landed on the ground. 2 of them were able to stay up, but all sustained injuries.
According to Sempra Infrastructure, the 2 employees who were injured have since been released from the hospital. When it comes to these kinds of accidents, Robert Wells, a paramedic with City Ambulance, says the help from other first responders allows them to respond fast.
They get everything in order for us when we get there so that we can have quick patient access and rapid transport to the hospital, because time is important in situations.
Bechtel officials have launched their own investigation and told 12 News that all work at the site was immediately stopped and all workers were sent home. In a statement to 12 News, Bechtel stated that it is supporting those impacted and ensuring site safety remain our top priorities. Captain Holmes acknowledged that there are still lingering questions.
Bechtel and the Sheriff's Office are all working together to find out exactly what happened.
And that was Cameron Burchett reporting. And Tia, this morning, as we understand it, that site is still shut down right now as OSHA does their investigation.
Yeah, and it could be days before it reopens, because there's a lot to sift through and process with this. Understandably so, it should stay closed for now.
Absolutely, it should.
Now, Mark, you were one of the first journalists on the scene when this all happened yesterday. What are some things you saw when you arrived there?
Yeah, Tia, I saw a lot of things when I got out there to the scene. Of course, I saw that scaffolding, or as Bechtel is referring to it, as the concrete jump form that had collapsed. And that form, of course, is wrapped completely around a massive concrete tank that's under construction at the Port Arthur LNG site. And right above it, I saw a crane with a strap, a rigging strap that was just hanging in the wind. It looked like something had gone very wrong, obviously, and possibly very fast. In fact, you see that shot right there. We had to get across the ship channel over onto Pleasure Island to really get a good view of things. Now, of course, what we're seeing there from that collapsed structure there and that rigging strap and that crane right above it, that all raised a few questions. Was this a section of that form or scaffolding, as it's being called, being put into place by the crane when this accident happened? Or, was there a load up in that crane that it was carrying, and did it slip out of it and fall down onto the scaffolding below? Or could it have been an issue with that scaffolding or form being attached to the concrete structure, but it hadn't been attached properly, and it just sheared off? Those are the questions that those are the key details and the questions that authorities have not confirmed yet, but it could be critical in determining whether this was a rigging accident or some sort of a structural failure.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered, and it'll take a while for us to get some of those questions answered, because stories like this, or accidents like this, it takes time to sift through it all.
And of course, OSHA, they have up to 6 months to reveal the details of what could have happened. And I would imagine what we're going to find out as far as answers, because the companies have released some statements on this, and they're vague to say the least. They said there was an incident that happened. Bechtel did clarify that this was part of this concrete jump form work that was going on, but I would imagine that the OSHA report, whenever that comes out, that will give us a lot of details. Or, you know, there's already talk of if there's maybe a wrongful death lawsuit or something, we could find out a lot of information like that.
Yeah, we had a story about that on Daybreak, and I believe the lawyer said something about families have up to 2 years.
Right.
So still a lot to process
Yes, it is.
as we learn more about, you know, the victims, the families, and everything that is happening. And I know you worked a little bit in the industry like this yourself, Mark, so kind of talk to me about what some of all of this means.
Yeah, absolutely, T. Of course, it's been several years now, but about 20 years ago, I worked in a shipyard in Mississippi, and I did some rigging there. So I have some insight into crane work, into, you know, safely securing things up whenever you're doing these heavy lifts. And we're talking about picking up things that weigh hundreds or thousands of pounds. So it's a balancing act. It's a science. You got to get it just right, of course. Otherwise, things could go seriously wrong. There's a lot of safety involved. So Bechtel, they told us in a statement that they were in the middle of a jump form process. And that's where they build the walls of the concrete tank kind of one level at a time. And what my research tells me into this type of work is that there are strict sequences for how those platforms get moved or jumped up the structure, and that every bolt or bracket, it has to be locked, verified, and rigged appropriately. And so, or if, you know, for example, if one point fails, or even if like a load from that crane swings into the platform unexpectedly, it can just set off a collapse.
A lot of people were wondering, or just, you know, we don't really know, but looking at the pictures and the video, just how high up a lot of those men were when that scaffolding collapsed.
Yeah, dozens of feet for sure.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we're understanding is that they were on that platform when whatever happened that caused it to fall like that, and falling dozens of feet. And it's very much a tragedy, of course. And of course, we're learning more now about the victims. And again, we know that 3 workers had died, 2 of them at the scene and a 3rd at Christus St. Elizabeth.
Yeah, one of those victims was Dontrell McGee. According to his friend, Charles McLemore, McLemore worked with McGee for 2 years during the Golden Pass LNG project in Sabine Pass. He told our 12 News reporter Ebony Coleman McGee was a genuine person and a hard worker.
He was one of the good ones that we shouldn't have lost.
Charles McLemore says his friend and former co-worker Dontrell McGee was one of the 3 men who died when a scaffolding collapsed at Port Arthur LNG.
He was a good dad. He always did things with his kids. We worked together. We could trust him. Anytime you need anything, ask him, he would do it.
According to Semper Infrastructure, the victims were employed by Bechtel, the contractor doing the work on phase 1 of the Port Arthur LNG project.
He hooks up the load of what the crane's going to be lifting.
McLemore says McGee, who went by the nickname Reggie, worked as a rigger.
A lot of people don't realize that every day you do jobs like that, like what Reggie did, you may not go home.
Attorney Mark Sparks says the outcome of this accident could play out in court.
If you're injured, you cannot sue your employer if that employer has workers' compensation insurance. However, and however with a big comma, if you are killed as a result of gross negligence by your employer, your family can still file a lawsuit for the wrongful death.
Sparks says families would need to file the lawsuit within 2 years if they plan to take action.
As a result of OSHA investigations, of course, there's no awards of damages to any victims. It's all fines and warnings or disciplinary issued against the company for violation of OSHA standards.
Meanwhile, McLemore continues to remember his friend.
Fellow operators, fellow riggers, we all loved Reggie. There was nobody out there that didn't like Reggie.
That was Ebony Coleman reporting. Now we are still working to learn the identity of the 3rd man killed.
Yeah, and as you heard a friend there, he identified Reggie McGee as one of the victims. And just moments ago, family identified 42-year-old Felix Lopez as another one of the victims. And his family is sharing this photo with us. And they say that he was a father of 4. And of course, you know, the victims, they go beyond just the men injured and killed. So many people out there work with these people and may have even witnessed this in first person, you know, losing a friend and then even having to go back there. And
yeah, like that one friend, Reggie's friend mentioned when he said, you know, we go knowing we might not come back home. You and I both have been talking to different people, you know, working these stories on social media. And one of the guys who was at the site when this happened, you know, he wants to remain anonymous, but he was just messaging me and saying, you know, a lot of people don't know that we're like a family. A lot of us travel for this type of work. We work long hours. We build our own community. And so a lot of people who knew the victims are also grieving this loss as well, or this tragedy of even experiencing being there yesterday when all of this happened. So.
These types of things could happen so quickly on these industrial sites, these type of industrial accidents. You know, and again, I worked at the shipyard, and so I was in the shop, and we had our different types of safety protocols that we had to follow. But you know, I was certified to do rigging. I was certified to be harnessed up, and you know, to use man lifts and things like that, to be at high elevations. And it's something that's always kind of in the back of your mind there, or it could be. But things could just happen all of a sudden. You're not sure how you'll react in a situation like that, and it's just a lot for everyone to go through.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you can see that support for the victims, and how much this, they say, I saw people saying like, pray for us blue collar workers, my blue collar family. So definitely thinking about all of them.
Absolutely.
Now, Port Arthur LNG is a natural gas liquefaction and export terminal. The facility is a joint project between Sempra Infrastructure and ConocoPhillips.
Yeah, it has been under construction for a little over a year now. And 12 News evening anchor Claytra Rhodes, she looked back on the timeline and the impact on local jobs.
This project consists of it's a natural gas liquefaction facility that will take U.S. natural gas that's produced in the country, liquefy it in our facility, and send it across the globe.
That was William Garola, the PA LNG general manager, in March 2024 when officials broke ground nearly a year after the project received final notice to proceed.
And it's official.
Phase 1, an almost $13 billion project, is still under construction and not online right now. Bechtel is the contractor doing the work on Phase 1 of the project. At an open house event in April 2023, Bechtel Energy Global Business Unit President Paul Marsden said the facility is meant to meet the growing demand for LNG in Europe, Asia, and other global markets.
LNG is absolutely paramount. To actually moving forward the energy transition. You know, it is a significantly cleaner fuel.
At that same 2023 open house, Martin Hupke, LNG president at Sempra Infrastructure, said he was about keeping operations local.
The resources that are already here, the ability to get natural gas and infrastructure here, but also the people.
In 2023, Bechtel reported a local hire rate of 51.16%. In 2024, the company detailed just how many workers would be involved in building the site.
Over 5,000 people. That's a head count at its peak. But it's more than that. That's probably about 10,000 people that are going to come through the doors of this site.
12 News has attended several hiring events for the company and even classes at Lamar State College in Port Arthur, where Bechtel teamed up with the college to design courses to train future workers. In 2024, Port Arthur LNG told 12 News that the company says it's committed to bringing on skilled young workers.
You know, we're focusing on things like education, workforce preparedness, environmental stewardship.
That was 12 News evening anchor Claytra Rhodes reporting. Now, phase 1 of the site is expected to be complete in 2027.
Yeah, and over the weekend, Bechtel, they had a hiring event even for this site. Now, according to a flyer on Facebook, the company was looking for a number of jobs there. That included positions for riggers and bull riggers, among other positions that you see listed there on your screen. In fact, there's another, they're doing an entire job fair, and that is planned for May 31st. Now, of course, all of this is a developing situation, and the truth, Tia, is that we may not know many of these details, or there could be several details that we don't know until the OSHA report comes out.
Yeah, it's good to know for people just to wait for the official information and stuff to come out, because you do see a lot of, I don't know the word is, guesstimation or estimations of how things could have happened, but it's just safe to let the officials handle it. And of course, 12 News will be working for everyone, to get the facts, because we are reaching out to officials for that type of information and everything.
Absolutely. They'll be interviewing, of course, what I would expect there to have been many witnesses to this incident, and they will get a chance to share their story and almost go through like a scientific process as they put this together. And I do wonder again if there will be any litigation raised by the people who, the families of those who passed away, because we may also get some details that come out of that through the court system as well.
Yeah, speaking of details, we want to note that OSHA has 6 months to complete the report. In the meantime, of course, we'll continue to press officials and site leaders for answers as this investigation continues. You want to make sure you stick with us on air and on 12 News and online as we learn more. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.